Hi, guys. Welcome back to Deep Waves Transformation. Today's episode is one that every parent, professional, and community member needs to hear. I'm honored to welcome Tara Rolstad, a powerful voice in the mental health space. Tara is an advocate, a speaker, an author who doesn't just talk about mental health, she helps people and organizations actually do something about it. Through practical strategies and heartfelt honesty, she empowers us to care for our own well being while showing up stronger for our kids, our workplaces, and our communities. She's also the author of the deeply impactful new book, When Your Child is Suicidal, a must read for any parent navigating the heartbreaking and often isolating experience of youth mental health crisis. Tara brings both expertise and empathy to the table, and I can't wait for you to hear her insights. Tara, thank you. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much for your time and your willingness to share your story with everybody. So, for those who don't know your story yet, what led you to become so passionate about mental health as an advocate?
Life. Life experiences. I think a lot of mental health advocates um, did not wake up one morning and think, you know what? I am going to rededicate my life to mental health and mental illness. It's not
Right.
generally how it works. We have some sort of adventure slash misadventure along the way. And I started out as a nonprofit executive. I was in program development, worked for a few different nonprofit organizations. But in 2008, my husband and I were called to take in some nieces as foster kids. My brother had died many, many years earlier, and the girls had been raised by some very broken people who did not keep them safe. And so the two of the girls came into our home, and there were two other girls that we helped with as well, that my parents helped raise. And that journey of caring for those girls who came to us with serious mental health issues as a result of their chronic trauma and abuse was my eye opening introduction to the experience of being a family whose family member lives with serious mental illness, how isolating that is, of how little help there is available to families. And that really is what kicked it off for us. My niece, my 14-year-old at the time niece, Kimberly, when she came to us was intensely suicidal and had a tremendous amount of depression and anxiety and self-harm behaviors happening. And we could not have been less prepared. We had three little kids, 2, 5, and 7. And so we didn't even know teenagers, let alone teenagers with mental health issues.
Yep.
And we naively thought, as I think most parents do and many foster parents do, especially those who had not been properly prepared as we had not been, we thought, well, we're just going to provide them opportunities and we're going to love them and they'll be fine.
Right.
That was not the case. That was absolutely not the case. And it required a lot more of us and it required a lot of growth and learning on our parts. But that's where it started.
Wow. How did you become aware that they were suicidal? Like, did they come to you and say, I'm suicidal? Or how did that get brought upon you? Because I know with my story, I can relate as well. I had just lost my mom in 2019, and we fell deeply and dark together into this
Uh-huh.
hole that we dug ourselves into and we didn't know how to climb ourselves out of. And so I remember one morning she had come to me and she placed the razor blades right on my dresser. And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea. She would cover it with clothing and all of that. So I had no idea. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do. What do I do? So yeah, please share your story with
Yeah.
that.
So we knew that when the social workers were talking with us about the girls, we knew that Kim had already been exhibiting some self-harm behaviors. And I want to be clear that self-harm doesn't equal suicidal. What it equals is I'm hurting a lot and I don't know what to do with it and I need help. And
Right.
so we didn't know that. We assumed that it meant that she was suicidal. I think that a lot of parents panic when they find out their child is self-harming. And panic is never helpful anyhow in parenting, even though it's a very normal human response. But for us, we went through the summer with the girls in our home and we were doing all of the things. We were getting them caught up on medical appointments, getting them connected to therapy, getting them enrolled in school. And just a few weeks into the school year, I got a call from the school counselor's office. And she said that they had found Kim in the restroom at school and she was actively suicidal with a plan. And that I needed to come pick her up immediately and take her to the emergency room. And so um, that was our first knowledge of how serious it was. And after that, she made several attempts over the years and thankfully survived all of them. But that was kind of the beginning of it, was finding out from somebody else. And often that's how it happens. Sometimes our kids don't feel like they can tell us. And so that's why it's so imperative that our kids have other adults in their life that they trust, that they can reach out to when for whatever reason, mom or dad or auntie isn't the right person. Um, so that's how we found out. And I will also say that later in my journey, that everything that we learned about with the girls and we went through with them and helped them on their healing journey as they grew up is what led me to becoming a professional speaker on mental health and an author. And then, as life has it, one of my own kids lives with severe depression and anxiety and is on the autism spectrum disorder, is on the autism spectrum. And so in 2021, she came to us one morning and said, I need you to take me to the hospital. I need help. I'm suicidal. And we had no idea.
Oh my gosh.
We knew she was depressed. We knew she'd been struggling. We'd been trying to get her help and connected to the right help. But that conversation is why it is so important for parents to start talking to their kids early about mental health, about suicidal thoughts, about depression, because they need to know that we are safe to talk to. They need to know it's okay to talk to us about these things and that we're not going to freak out and that we're going to help them.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's the most thing that we can do as parents is create that safe space for them to
yes,
come to. If you cannot go to your mom and dad, and I know most kids, when they do go to their mom and dad, they'll get yelled at, they'll get blamed, they'll place guilt upon them, they'll just make them feel like terrible human beings when all we need to do is just create that safe space for them to come to. And then they're like, oh, okay, I can come to mom, I can come to dad.
I
So, what are
think,
some of the flags that you witnessed during all of that to look out for?
I mean, I think like I said, we knew that our daughter was struggling. We knew her grades had gone down at school. She was isolating. She was having emotional kind of outbursts sometimes. Um, but what we didn't know was the depth of it. And so, I think it's so important for parents to know sometimes you're not going to spot it. We all know about the typical things, right? We know to look for kids that are isolating, for kids who aren't hanging out with their friends anymore, or who are hanging out with like a new crowd that doesn't seem healthy. But that's why it's important to keep initiating the conversation because sometimes you're not going to know. And unfortunately, there are families that have lost kids that never knew that there was something going on.
Yeah. What are some ways that we could help our kids, do you think?
Well, honest to goodness, I hope this doesn't sound too dramatic, but I really think that we should be talking to fifth and sixth graders, um, or even younger, and saying, hey, you know what? I just want you to know, as you grow up, sometimes life might get really hard, or you might have these really big feelings that you don't know what to do with. You can get really frustrated or really sad. We call that depression. And sometimes some kids even think that they would be better off dead. Some kids even think about hurting themselves or killing themselves. And I want you to know that it's okay if you have those thoughts. Lots of people have those thoughts. But what it means is you need some help, because there is help and you don't have to feel that way. And you can always come to us and talk to us, and we'll make sure that you get help. I won't be mad. You won't be in trouble, but it means that we need to work together to get you some help. If we had that conversation with every elementary school kid, this would be a safer world for our kids.
Absolutely, I agree. Also with sexual education too, because I am a huge advocate for domestic violence and sexual assault, as my stepdaughter was brutally beaten for 6 to 7 hours, that I just held a protest up at the Capitol in Salt Lake City just for that, just to bring awareness to all of that, because it just, the math does not math, because why are all of these perpetrators out here and not behind bars? And it's because our voices are not being heard. And it just feels like they're placing duct tape over our mouth, and we shouldn't just say anything, because if we do say something, they're going to blame you or make it all, it's all your fault. What did you do? What did you do? Oh, well, I didn't do anything. You just snapped, you know?
Yeah, I
So
think
yeah,
that's true. I think our kids knowing that whatever it is, that they can talk to us, that they can expect us to handle it. One of the lessons I have had to learn 1,972 times is don't put it back on your kid. Keep your feelings inside until you can go somewhere else and let them out. But
right.
don't make it about your fear or your anxiety or your feelings when your kid comes to you with something hard. And I mean, I have screwed that up, like I said, a bunch of times. My poor niece, the times that I would say, do you have any idea how scary this is for me? Do you have any idea how afraid we are for you? Well, she didn't
Yeah.
need that. That's not
Yeah,
her
she doesn't.
responsibility. I'm the grown up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I
Exactly.
think just, and
A
that
lot of
takes
protection.
practice. That takes a lot of practice, and not all of us come into parenting with all of the emotional regulation skills that are required when life gets hard. And so, for instance, my niece had to go through a particular type of therapy called dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT.
Sure.
Pretty,
Yeah.
pretty
About that.
standard therapy
Yep.
for kids who are going through what she has gone through. And part of that program is often that the parents have to go through the classes as well.
I love it.
And I went through the classes and learned so much for myself that made me a better parent. And I honestly think the other thing that we don't encourage parents about enough is, if your car breaks down, it is very, at least if my car breaks down, it's very unlikely that I will be out in the driveway trying to fix it. No, I will go to an expert. If my child has a problem with their elbow and their elbow's not working, I will I will not be taking any attempts to fix my child's elbow. And in the
Right.
same way, why do we think that when our kids are struggling with their mental health, that we can handle that by ourselves? We can't. So not only should we be getting our kids help when it's appropriate, we can get help for ourselves when we're going through hard parenting journeys. I think if you've got a kid, certainly any child who's struggling with serious depression or some sort of mood disorder or suicidal thinking, that should come with a prescription for you as a parent to go get your own therapist to get support for that. It's too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So what inspired you to write your book?
It's called What to Do Right Now When Your Child is Suicidal.
Okay.
And I wrote it because there is nothing available for parents in that situation. And it is an impossibly lonely, scary, difficult situation to be in. I was just shocked at how little was available for parents in terms of resources and support. The experts that are helping your child are very intent on your child, but they're not there for you at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're thinking, what do I do tomorrow? I mean, the hospital's going to send them home tomorrow. What do we do? Or we took them to the emergency room, but they didn't admit them. And now I'm bringing them home. What do I do? What
Yeah,
am
you're not equipped with the tools and
Right,
the resources
right. And
needed. Yeah,
so there's a ton of practical information in the book, like literally, what do you pack to go to the emergency room and what do you not
exactly.
pack? Um, Pro tip, don't pack anything with drawstrings because they'll make you cut them out. No underwire bras because they'll make you cut them out. So it's just like, who knows? Nobody tells you how to do this. Bring a sweater and an extra charger. You're gonna need it. But the other part of the book is how do I communicate openly with my child? How do I lay that groundwork so that we can communicate through this whole journey? How do I advocate for my kid with the school, with their providers, with family? When grandma wants to say, well, you're just fine. You're just trying to get attention. And you want to say,
Exactly.
grandma, step back. That's not helpful, right? So it's about communicating. It's about advocating. It's about taking care of ourselves as parents. Because by the way, that should not be optional. This is again, too hard of a journey for parents.
Sure.
And we need to focus on being our absolute best possible self, not best self, because that's a lot to strive for, but the best possible self that we can be in the middle of an impossible situation. Um, and there's just nothing else like it out there. So I'm so excited that it's available for parents, that they've got somewhere to turn, that they don't have to feel alone in this because it's very lonely.
Right. Absolutely. Was there a particular moment that made you realize that this book just had to be written?
It is, it was a series of moments of speaking to other parents and families. I'm an extremely open book and really open with our journey and with our story. And what I found is that I've never, ever shared my story and not had people respond with something from their own life, whether it's
Sure.
their child, their uncle, their aunt, their cousin. And how many times I heard families talk about dealing with kids with serious mental health issues. And I would say, "Oh my gosh, that sounds really hard. I'm sorry you're going through that. Who's who's walking this with you?" And they'd say, "Well, actually nobody. We were too ashamed to tell anyone, or we told someone and they told us XYZ unhelpful, terrible, judgmental thing. So we just don't talk about it and they're alone." And it was family after family after family that just didn't know where to turn and felt completely isolated.
Was there a specific day that you just woke up one morning and was like, I got to write a book?
So, yes, there was. I went
Tell us
to
about
I
the
went to
day.
a writer's retreat that I've gone to multiple times, a wonderful writer's retreat, and I had full intention of writing a new keynote for the corporate and association audiences that I speak to. I speak to those audiences about culture and mental health and how do we create organizational culture, very businessy kind of stuff, right? Self-care. And I went to this writer's retreat with the intent of writing a new keynote. And I got up that morning and wrote the first 3 chapters of this book. It
Wow.
just poured out of me. And I shared a little bit of it that night, and folks said, "Holy cow, you need to finish this."
Oh
Um,
my God.
I'm a person of faith, and I believe that I was called to do this work. This is part of what I'm here on the world to do. Um, and the encouragement that I've received along the way from families and from psychiatrists and therapists have just backed that up, that this needed to happen and it needed to be out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. Thank you for doing that, by the way,
Yeah.
bringing awareness. It's an important thing. So you've worked with many schools and churches and organizations. What are some of the biggest gaps you see in how we address mental health in those spaces?
Well, I think the biggest gap in parenting communities is the fact that we don't talk about it openly. I run my own conferences called Parenting and Mental Health, and right now I'm doing those in conjunction with some NAMI chapters, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And when it comes to parenting, we will put out on Facebook or Instagram, hey, does anybody have a good pediatric dentist?
Yeah,
You know,
ISO.
exactly,
It-
exactly. So easy to do that. But we don't say, hey, I need a good pediatric therapist for an eating disorder. Anybody got a source?
right.
Where
Why are we hiding, protecting that label?
exactly, exactly. And what it does is it continues the shame and the isolation and the hopelessness of the stigma of mental health and the stigma of mental illness, which, in my opinion, is absolutely ridiculous and unnecessary because mental illness is going to happen at some level for 1 in 4 of us over our lifetime. One
Mhm.
in four of us. It's not an uncommon experience. It happens to every gender, every age, every socioeconomic group. It's going to hit all of us in some fashion. And so for parents, it's about talking.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting because the stats of domestic violence and sexual assault are the exact same, 1 in 4 or 1 in 7. So I wonder if there's some kind of correlation there.
I don't know. It's an interesting thought. Yeah.
So, how do you navigate the line between protecting privacy and breaking the silence around mental health and suicide?
That's a really good question. And it's also tied into how do you protect your own story or your child's story in terms of is it a safe story to tell yet? And what I would say is that you share as much as is appropriate for you. So if you're not far enough on your own healing journey or your child's healing journey to be safe sharing what's going on, then don't. But for some of us, this is a really standard day-to-day experience of our life, right? And so little teeny tiny things can make such a huge difference. If you tell um, folks in the office, hey, I got to duck out 5 minutes early today because I got to get the pharmacy and get my antidepressant before they close.
Right.
Such a nothing statement, right? Such a tiny little thing. But what it does is it tells everyone around you, oh, she talks about that. Do we talk about that here? We talk about
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we talk about that here. And so it
Huh.
doesn't have to be that you get in line at Safeway or the grocery store and share, a full download of your last therapy session. That's not necessary. But just mentioning, that you've got a family member who's struggling with bipolar disorder and it's hard at home right now. Um, that changes the conversation. That changes everything for somebody else who's been listening in fear and shame and silence and doesn't know who to talk to.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's a huge part of it. Now, certainly parents are often hesitant to share their child's story. Certainly don't do it without their permission. I talk about both my daughter's story and my niece's story with their full permission. Um, and know that you are probably 97 times more uptight about it than your kids are because our kids are way healthier about all of this than we are. They're talking about it with each other. They're talking about it online. Um, and this is so important to, I think parents need to claim that they need to claim that this is their story also. If your child is going through something really difficult and hard, you are going through something really difficult and hard. And your story is your own thing. And it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to get support for it. It's okay to share it, obviously, with some boundaries to protect your child's privacy and how much of their story they're comfortable with people knowing. But you, at a minimum, for crying out loud, find a couple of girlfriends that you can talk to openly, confidentially, all the things. Because we cannot carry this by ourselves. We can't. It's not good for us.
No, we can't. What are some things you wish someone had told you earlier in your journey?
I wish somebody had told me it's not forever.
Mm,
Healing is possible even in the most difficult cases. And I
mhm.
don't mean, when I say healing, I don't mean things are going to go back to the way they used to be, or it's going to be as if this never happened. That's not the journey. Um, Everybody who is affected by serious mental health issues is changed, but we don't talk about recovery enough, and recovery is absolutely possible. And people don't have to suffer. So, my niece, for instance, she went through years of intense suicidality and self harm, years, running away, making dangerous choices in her life. And on paper, if you had looked at her story and you had looked at what was happening to her, statistically, she should not have survived. It should not have survived. And in fact, there were a lot of times when we thought she wouldn't, honestly. When I had to make sure that every single day that I spent with her, she knew I loved her. Because at the end of the day, if she didn't make it, she would at least know she was loved. So it was bad. Okay. It was very, very severe. And today, she is a young married mom with 3 kids of her own. She is fostering 2 kids herself. And
Really?
yes, she is an amazing mother and a fabulous advocate for her kids, all of her kids, and a fighter and a miracle. And I wish somebody had told me early on, recovery is possible. Keep fighting, keep looking for the right help because they can get better. Now, I'm not going to say she has absolutely no mental health issues today. She struggles. She's always probably going to struggle because the chronic trauma that she experienced changed her brain forever. But she knows how to get help, and she knows how to take care of herself, and she knows when to ask for help, which is amazing.
Yeah, knowledge is power.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
Learning how.
one thing I wish. Is there anything else I wish people had told me earlier? Tara, don't make it all about you. That would have been super helpful. Would have been helpful for my kids. Um,
Uh-huh.
Learning how to validate my kids' experience earlier on would have been really helpful because that was not the way I was parented. My parents were amazing, but that was not a skill set of the boomer generation necessarily. And it was more of a rub dirt on it, you're going to be
Get over it.
fine. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? Or the flip side of that is, well, what do you mean you're depressed? You're so pretty. You're so talented. You have so many friends. You can't be depressed.
Hmm.
Those actually sound like nice messages to share with someone. But what they actually say is, your feelings don't matter. And I'm not really listening to you. And I'm telling you what you should feel instead of being available to help you through what you are feeling.
And
So,
you'll be fine. Just put your beautiful mask on. You're
yes,
fine.
exactly.
It's okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I wish I'd gotten some training in that a little bit earlier, but there is no there's no chapter on any of this and what to expect when you're expecting at all.
Yeah, I missed that. And I even read the book.
Exactly. Exactly. I read all the books. I'm a big reader.
Right?
It's not in there.
Me too. Uh-huh. It's not. So, what does it mean to support a child in crisis without trying to fix them or rush their healing?
Oh, wait, we're not supposed to try to fix them? I have to go.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard. It's so
Yeah.
hard. And wanting to rush their healing. Oh my gosh, Tasha,
Does that
that
even make sense?
that when is it going to be over? When will they be all better? Um, I mean,
So, for example, both my mom in 2019, and then 11 months later, I lost my dad. And right when I lost my mom, 3 months after I lost her, I entered into this really, really bad, extremely bad toxic relationship. And I remember, and then I lost my dad and we were still together. So he went through that all with me. So he understood that I had just lost both parents. And 3 months later, he texts me and says, "It's been 3 months already. Aren't you healed yet?" I said, "Oh my God, did he really just say this to me?" So what do you say to people that like people are rushing them, rushing?
It takes so much
Does that
time.
make sense?
Yeah, it takes a lot of time to heal. I part of this, if it's helpful, is to remember that mental health issues are brain health issues. Our brains are physical organs in our physical bodies, and
Yep,
physical healing is a process that often takes a
yep.
lot of time. And our brains are far more complicated than any other organ in our body. I'm not a scientist, but I feel like I can say that. That is true.
Yep.
And that's where getting support for yourself as a parent becomes really, really helpful. I have my own therapist. I didn't get one for years. I didn't get one until my daughter's suicidality really became evident, and I hit perimenopause and menopause at that exact same time, which, by the way, is how this often happens, which makes everything more difficult. And
Yeah.
I started to develop my own anxiety and started to have panic attacks in the middle of the night and realized, okay, I am not handling this. I need extra help. And so I have a therapist now who my friends cannot hear about this every single week forever, right? Like there's only so much that your friends can truly support you in. And I have an amazing friend group, but I can go to my therapist every week and say, okay, here's where we are again. We're still there. It's not better. I'm still struggling, because my daughter is still on her healing journey. She's still trying to figure it out. And, and depression is a brutal, brutal beast. It just is. And so there are days when I think, how long is this going to take? Will she get better? And those are normal feelings. And having folks around you to support you is, for me, what has helped me get through.
Well, speaking about just you and zooming in on you, what keeps you grounded and hopeful when the work gets really heavy? What do you do? What are your practices?
I focus on sleep, which has been
Okay.
a huge issue for me. And not even insomnia, just like a lot of really disturbed sleep. Or if I don't focus on getting enough sleep, I'm not going to be okay. So there are a few people who can get away without a lot of sleep. There's not nearly as many of us as we think there are. Um,
Mhm.
Somewhere between 1% and 2% of humans can get by on just 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. So the rest of us are absolutely deceiving ourselves. But I focus on sleep. I focus very intently on my friendships and my social support circle because that's a critical support piece for me. I have a really supportive husband, which has been super helpful. And I make time to do the things that bring me joy. So I have a subscription to our movie theater, and I will go see a movie once a week by myself, which makes me so happy.
That's awesome.
So
Good for
it's the
you.
basic things like food, nutrition, exercise, blah blah. I call them the boring four when I speak about self-care because they are so boring.
Yeah.
And then it's finding those
So
little
you maybe
extra
to
things.
somebody else.
Yeah. And then it's finding those extra little things that bring you joy and making sure you make time for them.
Right. Absolutely. If you could speak directly to everyone that's overwhelmed, any worried parent listening right now, what's one message you want to leave them with?
I mean, if you are not overwhelmed and stressed out in this world right now, I'm not sure you're paying attention. It's a really hard time to be a parent. It's a really hard time to just live in this society. And there's so much unkindness and so many hard things happening. I'm struggling with it on a daily basis. And what I have found helpful is to notice, what can I do right now to love the people that I come across today better? I can't fix everything. I can't. fix much of anything, but I can be kind to the mom at Target with a
Right.
tantruming toddler. I can, figure out a new thing to try at home to help my daughter. Uh, just do what you can to be love and light to the people in your life, and don't give up.
I love that. I love that so much. Tara, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and being so vulnerable. And really, I know it takes a lot to talk about family and to even talk about problems in general. We want to put this beautiful image on social media when behind closed doors, it's really something else. And I know that is the case because I have witnessed it day to day. So I know, like, I may see your social, but I know what really goes on behind closed doors. So it's so sad that we feel like we have to put on this false illusion, the false social media illusion of ourselves. Because it almost, you're lying to yourself. You're pretending to be something that you're not. And so you're all you're doing is really just filling that ego. What does your ego want to hear? So I'm going to post it on social media. Don't we look so beautiful? Oh, we went on this beautiful day, yada yada yada. But are you really practicing all of that behind closed doors? Is my question.
And
So,
life is so much richer and has so much
mhm,
more love and support in it when we're honest with each other and when we're brave
exactly.
enough to be real with people. It's so much richer.
What else do you think we can do as a society to start healing and advocate for mental health and helping our kids? What else could we do?
Treat mental health like physical health, whether
I love
that's
that.
whether that's uh you wouldn't wait if your kid had strep throat. You wouldn't wait if they had a broken bone. Don't wait to take them in to see somebody if you're concerned about their mental health. Don't wait. We get all jacked up about it because it's our brains and we're worried and we want to pretend it's not happening. We want to be in denial. Take them in to see someone. Start with a pediatrician if you have to. But also in your day to day life, talk about it. Talk about mental health. Talk about it with your kids.
Mhm.
Talk about it at work. Talk about it with your friends so that everyone in your life knows that you're a safe person to talk to. You don't have to have,
Yeah.
the other thing is you don't have to have the right answers. You don't have to know how to fix any of this. You just have to be a good human. People need your presence, not perfect answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the reasons why we don't really push for help is because we can't see it. Like if you were to fall down and scrape your elbow, I could see blood's coming out of your elbow, but I can't see your depression. I can't see your anxiety. So I'm not going to treat it like it's real when in fact it's realer than the scraped elbow.
Yeah,
So we need to start with our mind, body, soul,
absolutely.
I think.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Tara, for coming on today. And if you guys would love to be a part of the Deep Waves Transformation family, please join us on my YouTube channel, Deep Waves Life Coaching, and on my socials at Deep Waves Life Coaching. And I will also post Tara's information alongside mine at the end of the show. Thank you so much for being a part of this, Tara. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
For more information on where to find me, please visit deepwavescoaching.com and on my socials at Deep Waves Life Coaching. For more information on where to find Tara, please visit her at tararolstad.com and on her socials at Tara Rolstad. Also, do not forget to pick up a copy of her book titled What to Do Right Now When Your Child is Suicidal. Thank you so much for watching.